I'm here to try to give you an explanation as to the events that took place some time ago that will let people have a different perception of what occurred. But since I have no control over social media, it was necessary for me to try to take control of the narrative and do it this way. Despite all that you may have heard, I just ask that people refrain from passing judgment until all the facts have come to light. The truth is that there's a lot of garbage that has been spread about me and my family, and I wanted to stop once and for all. 20 years ago, I was overdosing on SSRI antidepressants. It gradually built up over the course of a year where I was taking more and more of it. I was prescribed 2 pills. I went up from 10 to 20 pills a day. And over the course of a year, I became more and more hostile and getting into more and more arguments and fights with people all over the place. I was becoming like a lunatic, and I didn't realize it. I had no feedback loop to let me know that there was something wrong with me. And finally, it concluded with me screaming at one of my coworkers, and also, which almost cost me my job. I mean, I came very, very close to losing my job as a result of this psychotic episode at work. And I had a psychotic episode in my neighborhood screaming at one of my elderly neighbors and just sent her rocketing through the roof. I mean, she was so angry. And that's how I lost my reputation in this way. And I've lost friends over this. My kids have lost friends over this. It really cost me dearly, the overdosing on these antidepressants and what they do. I will show you some videos that will explain a little more clearly about why all these antidepressants are linked to school shootings and how other people are losing their minds. There was actually a statistic that I read recently that said that over 200,000 people a year check into hospitals and mental hospitals in a state of antidepressant-induced psychosis. So watch the videos on antidepressants and violence for yourselves, and I'm going to show you and you judge for yourself.
Columbine, we never really came up with the answer in terms of why this happened. I think we did a good job of exposing all the reasons that were given were a bunch of BS. You know, Marilyn Manson caused them to do it, this or that caused them to do it, and none of it really made any sense. That's why I believe there should be an investigation in terms of what pharmaceuticals, prescribed pharmaceuticals, these kids were on. It would be shocking, I think, to the millions of parents who prescribe this for their kids if it was finally explained to them, if this is the case, that this perhaps occurred for no other reason other than because of these prescriptions. How else do you explain 2 otherwise decent kids, very smart, no history of violence, to other kids in the school? Why them? Why did this happen? It's an extremely legitimate question to pose, and it demands an investigation.
In May 1998, 15-year-old Kip Kinkle murdered his parents and 2 classmates, as well as injuring 25 others, after engaging in a shooting spree that ended up in his school's cafeteria. In the investigation, it emerged that he had been taking popular antidepressant medication Prozac since the summer of the previous year. In December 2000, Michael McDermott went on a shooting rampage at his workplace, Edgewater Technologies, killing 7 of his co-workers. During his trial, the court heard testimony that in the weeks before the shooting, McDermott had tripled the dosage of his antidepressant medication, Prozac, from 70 milligrams per day to 210 milligrams. In March 2005, 16-year-old Jeff Weiss shot and killed 9 people, including 5 students at Red Lake Senior High School in Minnesota, before turning the gun on himself. It was later revealed he had been undergoing treatment for depression and had been on Prozac at the time. In September 2008, Finnish post-secondary student Matti Saari shot and killed 10 other students on campus before killing himself. The official Finnish government report on the incident revealed that he had been taking an SSRI medication at the time of the shooting. SSRI stands for Selective Serotonin Reuptake Inhibitor, and it is a class of drugs that is often used to treat depression and anxiety. It includes Prozac, Zoloft, Celexa, Paxil, and a host of other commonly prescribed antidepressants. And the perpetrators of a raft of school shootings, mass murders, and other violent incidents in recent years have been taking them. And so it was perhaps not surprising when the culprit of this month's mass shooting at Fort Hood, Specialist Ivan Lopez, turned out to be taking unnamed antidepressants himself.
We have very strong evidence that he had a medical history that indicates unstable psychiatric or psychological condition.
Lopez had been prescribed powerful antidepressants and the sleep drug Ambien. He was getting help.
Although it is yet to be reported, and may in fact never be revealed, precisely what type of antidepressant Lopez was taking, or whether it was an SSRI, the number of confirmed SSRI shooters in recent years has raised the question of a causal link between the medication and incidents of violence. Although the drug manufacturers are quick to downplay this connection as anecdotal or coincidental, mounting scientific evidence points to a strong correlation between the use of psychiatric drugs in general, and SSRIs in particular, and violent behavior. When incidents of school massacres in the US are charted against prescription of psychiatric medication, the correlation is undeniable. Further research is needed to establish if there is a causal linkage between these pharmaceuticals and the incidents of violence, but critics of the big pharmaceutical manufacturers complain such research is hampered by the low standards for reporting that these companies are held to. One such critic, David Healy, author of over 150 peer-reviewed papers in the field of psychiatry and the author of numerous books, including Pharmageddon, joined me on the Corbett Report last week to discuss this issue. Further complicating the issue is the fact that the general public is often, as in the case of the Fort Hood shooter, left in a state of limbo regarding the medical history of the perpetrators of these mass shooting events. Often stories are reported with vague and unconfirmed details about antidepressants, or sometimes just medication. It can be difficult for the average person to sort through the daily reports of adverse and violent effects of these types of drugs. This video is brought to you by the subscribers of BoilingFrogsPost.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Moira Dolan, internal medicine physician with the Medical Accountability Network. A lot of people have been asking what is the connection between violence, suicide, and homicide and antidepressant medications. Let's take a look at this. There are numerous examples of people who have gone off on a shooting rampage and then killed their classmates, their co-workers, members of their family, and then often took their own lives, and then it was shortly discovered that they were taking an antidepressant. The apparency is that the person was mentally ill and then went off on a rage. But when these cases have actually been looked at closer, what we find is that the person did not have any violent tendencies, and in most cases was not even suicidal before they started treatment with their antidepressant medication. Paranoid reaction, psychosis, dizziness. So here we have hostility, paranoia, agitation, combined with the akathisia, which is a sense that I've got to go do something. And you could see how these can all add up to irrational murders. The string of school shootings that we have seen is strictly a phenomena that coincides with the massive use of these drugs over the past 15 to 20 years. It was not something that was seen in the 20 years earlier across this group of drugs, as well as the akathisia, hostility, psychomotor agitation, paranoid ideas, hostility, and of course what comes out of that is violence.
I think one of the worst aspects of what happened here was that the person that did the most damage in my community lives with a guilty conscience, frankly. I don't think she's ever done anything so antisocial in her entire life. And it wasn't her fault, really. It wasn't her fault. Hi.
Okay.
Milk for you, but I also brought over some flowers.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
I wanted to apologize to you for all the trouble I've caused you.
What trouble? You're not in any trouble. Never, Teddy, with all my heart. Don't say that.
Well, here's some flowers. Here's a card.
You make me cry.
I'm sorry.
And if you want to know what happened here, watch these. 20 years ago, I was overdosing on SSRI antidepressants. It gradually built up over the course of a year where I was taking more and more of it. I was prescribed 2 pills. I went up from 10 to 20 pills a day. And over the course of a year, I became more and more hostile and getting into more and more arguments and fights with people all over the place. I was becoming like a lunatic, and I didn't realize it. I had no feedback loop to let me know that there was something wrong with me. And finally, it concluded with me screaming at one of my coworkers, and also, which almost cost me my job. I mean, I came very, very close to losing my job as a result of this psychotic episode at work. And I had a psychotic episode in my neighborhood, screaming at one of my elderly neighbors, and just sent her rocketing through the roof. I mean, she was so angry, and that's how I lost my reputation in this way. And I've lost friends over this. My kids have lost friends over this. It really cost me dearly, the overdosing on these antidepressants and what they do. I will show you some videos that will explain a little more clearly about why all these antidepressants are linked to school shootings and how other people are losing their minds. So watch the videos on antidepressants and violence for yourselves, and I'm going to show you and you judge for yourself. Then I'll actually introduce the woman who said this thing and why they did. At this point, I actually take them to the hairdresser. I take them to church on Sundays. We share food among our families. I mean, all this is blown over here, but my reputation is still damaged in the community. And after you watch and hear a witness testimony, you'll see that all I'm guilty of is having screamed at this elderly neighbor like a psychotic lunatic while I was intoxicated, hyperstimulated on these powerful drugs. And then we'll ask these women, I'll ask them a couple of questions and we can conclude this. One of the worst indirect problems that happened here was that the person who, I think one of the worst aspects of what happened here was that the person that did the most damage in my community lives with a guilty conscience, frankly. I don't think she's ever done anything so antisocial in her entire life. And it wasn't her fault, really, it wasn't her fault. What you just saw was how I got into this mess and how antidepressants nearly destroyed my life and damaged the lives of other people who were responsible for spreading this in reaction to my psychotic state on antidepressants. It was a harrowing tale, but I want it to stop now. Thank you.
So, all I want to ask is, do you think well, what did you think of the video?
Yeah, very nice. You said just as it is.
As it happened, right?
Yeah. Right, yeah.
So what do you think of me now? Am I a murderer?
No, are you kidding? No. Such a nice person.
Am I a rapist?
No.
Who takes you to church on Sundays?
You do.
Who takes you to your hairdresser?
Yeah, right.
Thank you. Yes.
That's what we were talking
As far as I see, you're a very good person.
Very good person.
And your children are
And
very
you have
well
beautiful
brought.
children, so what does it mean? You're a good parent, right?